So I just want to give a brief introduction before we start. Hello, guys. I am your host, Anthony Ayeni, on the Backyard Talks podcast show.
AKA double A.
uh, so yeah, I grew up playing sports my whole life and have had different various roles within the sports industry. Today I have a special guest. Um, Today I will be interviewing Sergio Muro. Is that how you pronounce your last name?
Yeah. Muro. You want to add the Spanish into the
Muro.
Muro?
Okay.
Muro, you got it.
Muro.
Yeah.
All right. He is the boys varsity high school basketball coach at Maine East High School. And before serving as a head coach, Coach Muro served as an assistant coach and also as a head coach on the varsity and sophomore team at St. Patrick High School for many years. And he had the good fortune of coaching my younger brother, who's currently playing college basketball D3 at Augustana. So Coach Serge, I just want to say thank you for giving me the time to interview you today. I know you have a busy schedule with, the season just ending,
hmm
and also just participating in school activities. So Coach, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. This is day two of our spring break, so I'm enjoying some time off. It gives me some time to kind of reflect and kind of get myself organized for the off season that starts right away, coming back from break. And it's honestly full throttle for another 3 months. April, May, and then June. And then you kind of get July off a little bit. But yeah, man, I've been doing well, man, and again enjoying this spring break here, and excited to be here with you.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I mean, you gotta have some downtime, for sure. And the grind really never stops. I believe the off season is typically the time where you get the most out of your opportunities to improve as a player and as a team. So that's good to see that you're starting early, but hopefully after this interview you can really enjoy your spring break.
For sure. Yeah, no, for sure, right?
So just to go into it, I want to know about your upbringing. So could you tell everyone where you're from, where you were raised, and your family and life situation up until this point?
Yeah, man. I always love those type of questions. Those are definitely questions that I would ask uh myself if I was just talking to somebody through basketball or not basketball. I'm just always had that curiosity of just kind of get to know them, where they been at from the bottom, or where they been from, where their family from. So I was born and raised in Chicago, north side of Chicago. I think I was born in Illinois Masonic Hospital.
Hmm.
So for my first 8 years, I grew up in the north side of Chicago, kind of the Belmont, Craigie neighborhood, Logan Square-ish neighborhood. So I grew up there with my family. My mom and dad uh, are both immigrants from Mexico. My mom got here when she was like 15, so she got to experience high school here a little bit. She went to Schurz, and my dad kind of came here when he was like 19. So his two totally different kind of situations. They kind of migrated here from Mexico, kind of just to kind of live that dream, man. As a lot of immigrant families do. So they both came to Chicago. Um, they didn't meet till a little bit later, but they raised us first off in Chicago. I have two older siblings. I was about 8 years old, and it was probably 1999, 1999 is when we moved out to the suburbs, northern suburbs of Morton Grove.
Hmm.
Um, so from there, man, we grew up in the suburbs, and I've never really left Morton Grove since, man. I've been here ever since, and um, that's kind of where I've started. But my family started off as city, and then kind of moved out here to the suburbs. And I'm still a city guy at heart. We still have a lot of family out there, and we still attend mass down there in the city. So very familiar with the area still.
That's awesome. So for high school, did you attend Maine East?
Yeah, man. So I went to Maine East High School, and now I think it was was it 14 years later, I became the head coach at Maine East. I just finished year two as a head coach, and man, it's flying. Um, it's really flying. I can't believe I'm actually starting year number three here. So, uh, yeah, I went to Maine East, man. I never thought I would be back, to be honest with you. It never crossed my mind that I wanted to be back. And we actually had really good teams at Maine East, and we haven't had a winning record since I was a senior there. So I'm kind of looking to change the program. We've gotten close 2 years in a row, both playing 500 basketball both years. So 2 years in a row, kind of 500, but we've won um, 29 games in the last 2 years. That's more than they have had won in about the last 5 years combined. So we are making changes. We are making strides. We play in such a tough conference, tough sectional, good coaches, good players. So it's tough.
Oh, I mean, that sounds like a whirlwind of, just opportunity, but just experience to grow.
Hmm.
You talking about how you grew up in Morgan Grove and you went to high school in Maine East.
Hmm.
Can you tell me a little bit about your experience with just being exposed to basketball and maybe how the game has influenced your life?
Yeah, this is a very interesting question, man, because my dad has kind of always played soccer, and that was his thing, right? That's the thing that he really knew. But like, man, just like when my parents migrated here, and it's more specifically my dad came from Mexico straight to Chicago. I think like in 1979 um, is when he kind of got here to Chicago, and he kind of like basketball was big in Chicago. I think at that time, I think more so basketball started actually with him with DePaul. DePaul was really good at that time. Your alma mater, they were really good at that time, right?
You talking about University of
Yeah,
DePaul?
DePaul University. Yeah, University of DePaul, your alma mater. They were really good at that time, and it made a lot of noise. And then it's funny how you can really make an argue. I can really make an argument that how I was exposed to basketball started with Michael Jordan.
Okay.
All right. So my dad's just, he does it takes him a while to kind of figure out no English, but he just wants to fit in here in Chicago, right? So he sees like how important sports are, right? So he's a diehard Cubs fan. He loves the Cubs. He loves the Bears. He loves the Chicago Bulls, right? No, he had no more love for Chicago sport more than the Chicago Bulls because of just, of course, MJ, Michael Jordan, the legacy, how he just brought so many memories here, right? And from there, Jordan was such a hot name, and it was such a time to live those ages, live here in Chicago with Jordan, and that was so. My older sisters grew up watching Chicago Bulls. I kind of grew up watching Chicago Bulls a little bit. I mean, I was really young, but like I would always hear the name and wear the jerseys and all that. So it really started with Michael Jordan. My older sister played basketball a little bit. Um, so from there when we lived in the city of Chicago, we knew who the Bulls were. We loved the Bulls. It was Jordan and everything else, right? That's my dad loved it. And then when we moved out to the suburbs, I started playing. My parents entered me into like a league, and I hated it. I didn't want to play basketball because I was never exposed to the team, and I hated it. But to my parents' credit, man, they said you're gonna play. You're gonna give it one more year. Now I'm like in sixth grade. I'm like, okay. Then all of a sudden I get good, I get a little bit better. My friends play basketball. It was just what we did, right? We played basketball. And next thing you know, just basketball just became my life there, right? You know, so really, my dad's, you know, um, passion for the Chicago Bulls and Jordan, right? I really like basketball. Kind of, I'm gonna push this on my kids, raising a family here in Chicago to entering ourselves into like leagues and sports. So once I started playing in fifth grade, I never stopped and kind of kept going from there. Um, all through my junior high, high school. I didn't play in college, but I definitely did coach right after college is when I got into coaching.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
Speaking of Jordan, Jordan's right behind
Yeah,
you.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
it's I
Crazy.
I think it was meant to happen that you were gonna bring up Jordan, and Jordan's right behind
Yeah, yeah,
you.
for sure, man.
So do you growing up, being exposed to basketball at a young age, do you consider yourself to be like a 90s kid?
Yeah, I consider myself a '90s kid. Definitely a
Okay.
'90s kid and like an early 2000s type of kid too,
2000?
man. Because I got jerseys that still fit me from the '90s. They always bought them big, so now it fits me just like fine. And then once the early 2000s hit, the baggy jeans and the baggy jerseys, man, that was the look, man. I have a lot of jerseys that are like fit me to my knees, that are all the way down to my knees right now. So, um, um, yeah, man, I do consider myself a '90s baby. I
Got it.
grew up really idolizing, other than Jordan. I probably grew up liking Reggie Miller a lot too.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, from you playing the game, how would you
Mhm.
describe your game to people that don't know? Like, what type of player were you growing up?
Yeah, I'd be a combo guard, man. Like I wasn't a point guard, but um, I shot it well, but I was undersized, right? I wasn't quick, but I just kind of knew how to play a little bit. Um, so I was just kind of a combo guard. I could run the offense or I could play off the ball. Like I didn't need the ball to kind of be effective. That's just who I was.
Okay. So if you had to like, I mean, obviously you're a head coach right now, so you're focusing on the whole team. But if you had to really like specialize um one position, kind of similar to football, how they have wide receiver coaches, they have quarterback
Mm,
coaches, defensive
hmm
tackle, offense, how would you which position would you like heavily focus if you had to pick a position to coach for the kids?
hmm Yeah, probably. Basketball is so different now, man. Everybody has to be able to have the skill set, right? You got to be able to do pass. You got to be able to dribble. You got to be able to shoot. You got to be able to handle the ball, right? You got to ball movement, right? I mean, if I had to work with the group, if I had to work a group in regards to kind of like a wide receivers coach, I'd probably be like, I guess like I would label myself more as a perimeters coach, right? Working with perimeter oriented players.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
solid. I mean, ideally you want a player that can do everything. So
hmm
it's in and out type of player that can shoot, score, and dribble
hmm
on all three levels. So that's great to hear. Um,
hmm
you mentioned just the opportunity to coach right after college. Can you tell me a little bit about that and what direction you were headed towards that?
Yeah, man. So I graduated from high school in 2009, and I remember vividly. I got a call from my former high school coach, Glenn Olson. He's now the head coach at Niles North, and he's coached a lot of good players there and runs a really good program there. So it's his first year at Niles North. It is my first year after high school, and he calls me and says, "Hey, do you want to coach?" And I said, "Yeah, of course." He says, "All right, you start tomorrow." I said, like, I just wasn't ready. Like, what? You start tomorrow? I'm like, okay. You know, so next thing he called me on a Wednesday. Practice was on Thursday. Um, I started coaching. My first coaching job was coaching the Niles North Junior Vikings team, seventh grade team,
Hmm.
who I still kind of keep in contact with some of the players on that team. Um, so that was my first gig after high school. I did that for 3 years, I believe. 3 or 2 years. I think I coached Niles North Feeder team, and it was like one of the best times of my life, coaching those guys. So I believe I did Niles North Feeder team for 3 years. Yeah, 3 years. I stood with that group, and then I coached a seventh grade group after that group kind of graduated and I went into high school there. So I started there, man, and I was kind of thrown into the fire. Had never done anything coaching wise. I've never worked like a summer camp. I've done zero coaching up to this point, and just got thrown into fire. and that was probably the best thing that happened to me
Did
was
you
just
know
getting thrown in that fire.
did you know that you wanted to always coach?
Yeah, I think I always knew I wanted to coach, but I just never knew like when it was gonna happen, right? So I started coaching at the age of 18.
That's a perfect time.
Mm-hmm. Started coaching right at the age of 18. I did Niles North Feeder team. And I want to even say that first year, that first spring after high school, I might have coached AAU and travel basketball with full package. Um, I would work the Niles North summer camp. I did a summer camp one time there. And then my second year of coaching, um, this is the most interesting one, man. I got a phone call from someone. He's like, "Hey, we're looking for a youth basketball coach at the Glenview Park District." I think you worked there. You did a couple things there, right? It was called the Tiny Trotters kids basketball camp, and it was kids ages 5 through 6. And that's where I really learned how to coach.
Why?
That's where you had to be loud, not loud, but you had to have a strong voice. You had to be a strong presence to get these young kids' attention. That's where I learned where you have to be specific, you have to be patient, you have to be direct, because these are young children, and you also want to make it where where you're direct and you're giving out strong instruction, but not but also having enthusiasm for the game of basketball. Because if you don't have enthusiasm as fifth and sixth graders, they're not going to have enthusiasm. So I did that for about 2 years. Every fall for 6 weeks, it was like 6 weeks. It was always Tuesdays and Thursdays, four to six. Um, and it wasn't easy, but it was definitely worth it and fun.
You
Tiny
know,
Trotters, that's where I really enjoyed the coach.
well, so like is that essentially how you made connections? I mean, beyond of like the Niles North, Coach
Hmm.
Olson, of being
Hmm.
introduced into playing, I mean, coaching in general.
Yeah, that's the cool thing about basketball. It's such a small world. It's such a good networking place. You're coaching. You meet new people. It's how I met about full package. That's how I met a full package coach. And then when I got to full package, I met another coach there. And it was actually Coach Muro, the head coach at St. Ignatius, and he was kind of like, "We need to get you at St. Pat's, man." You know. Um, I said, "Oh, okay, yeah, maybe." I didn't think they were gonna call me, and sure enough, Coach Bailey calls me one time. "Hey, we want you to coach here," and I kind of like had stayed. I had gave like a verbal commitment to now it's North that I was going to come back and help out, and I couldn't, so it was too late. Fast forward another year, same time, October comes around, I get a coach from Coach Bailey. "Hey, we need a coach and we want you." And I've always known that to play at St. Pat's, it was pretty prestigious, well-known basketball program. I've knew that from my high school days when we would play them in the summer, like how good they were and so forth. So I was like, man, he's calling me 2 years in a row. I can't say no a second time in a row. Um, so then I started there maybe 2012, I think is when I started there. Um, 2012 is when I started there as a freshman B coach. I coached freshman B for 2 years, freshman A for 1 year. And then I became the head sophomore coach along with being the assistant varsity coach there. And I did that for 6 years. In total, I was at St. Pat's for 9 years.
Wow. Talk about
Yeah.
impact.
Yeah, yeah, man. You never say no to an opportunity, man. You always say you never say no to an opportunity to coach somewhere at a young age. At that time, that was my mindset. Somebody asked me, "Hey, you want to run this camp?" Yeah, man, let's do it. Um, let's do it. So you never say no to an opportunity.
Hey, I'm quoting that right there. Coach,
Mm-hmm.
a quote from Coach Monroe, Muro.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Never say no to an opportunity to get better, or never say no to an opportunity in something you're trying to seek that you want. So That was kind of my mindset earlier on as a young coach early on. I was like, ah, yep, I'll do it. You know, hey, do you want to coach ages 5 and 6? I kind of don't, but I need to get better. You know,
Yeah.
um, so yeah.
It's kind of crazy that you mentioned the start date too, because I'm just also trying to imagine myself if like I ended up going to school at St. Pat's because
Hmm.
my time span in high school was 2012 to 2016. You could have
Yeah,
potentially been my coach.
yeah, potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
No, for sure. It could have definitely happened. Hmm.
So as you just dive in more into your works of coaching and your years of experience, how has your philosophy with coaching changed over time, and what is your philosophy?
Oh yeah, man, my philosophy with coaching. There's a lot that goes into it, man. I think number one, you have to be yourself. Um, you got to know who you are as an individual first, right? I got to know who I am and what my strengths are and what my weaknesses are. Um, so you just got to be true to yourself. It's kind of been a little bit of a starting point for me, knowing who I am, right? And not trying to be somebody I'm not. I think the lucky thing about my journey and career is that I've been involved with so many good coaches. I've been around so many head coaches that just wears off on you. So, you know, I may be young and experienced as a head coach, but like I pride myself, like, hey, I was really well mentored. So if I made a mistake, I should have not made that mistake. You know, I held myself to that high standard. I try to hold myself to a high standard because I've been around a lot of good coaches, right? So I've been around a lot of good coaches, so I really pride myself in just like, no, I should have not gotten that wrong because I've been really well mentored, right? Youth and age has nothing to do with it. My experience with other coaches and being around basketball and being around with good coaches should kind of drive those decision makings. Um, so like my philosophy, man, you got to relate to players. Players need to be able to listen to you, respect you, and that's not all on the players, right? That's a lot of it falls on the head coach. What am I doing? What am I saying? What am I preaching? What am I all about that can get them to listen and believe in the way we want to play, right? So a player relationship is a must, man. Like players have to believe in what you're saying, okay, and they need to be able to kind of stick with it throughout the whole time. We're trying to send that message there. So, player relationship, one, it's really at the forefront of what I do and a lot of things what I do. Secondly, it's preparation. You have to have a plan. You have to be able to execute the plan. You have to be able to change the plan along the way. It's not going to go in chronological order. I don't think things don't always go to plan, right? So you got to be able to adjust on the fly and make those adjustments when needed. Um, so just again, player relationship, preparation, and just continue to build like daily habits, good daily habits, getting better every day.
I think that's important, and from analyzing you as a coach and seeing the impact you've made on kids, especially my brother
Mm,
during
hmm.
your time at Pats, I can say that you're a player's coach. I can see the little things and the marks you make with players, with the organization you're with. And you know my me and my mom came to one game
Mm,
to see you coach and your team play, and
mm,
it was amazing just to see you go to work. So
hmm.
I'm
Thanks,
definitely
man. Yeah,
I'm definitely happy to see your successes.
yeah, yeah, man. Thanks, man. I can't wait to see Drew play again, and I'm excited for what's in store with you. Elizabeth's got some mad skills. She's helped me out a lot. She's actually designed this hoodie right here, Maine East versus everybody.
Wow.
This is an Ayeni design, baby. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone's got talent in our family. I think
Yeah.
with that is just being able to use it to the best of your ability.
Hmm. Yeah, man. Yeah, you guys are gonna be really good.
So as we focus with you coaching and just the team aspect, can you tell me just like your perspective on how you know, balance the development of players on your team with like talent, them just growing as players, but also evaluating team success because they go hand in hand. Like, you want everyone on the team to get better, but you have to be realistic with expectations.
Hmm. Yeah, man. That's a really good point, and that's one of the I don't I think that's you know I think that topic right there, right? You have an experienced team, but you got this one young player who's really good, and you really want to develop. But um, we again team expectations, right? We want to win, right? I think that's the purpose of kind of why we do these things. We want to win and compete at that highest level. So yeah, I think how we balance that is, you never try to rush anything. Um, Sometimes because a player is 6'5" and 205, we just want him out to go out and dominate right away, right? And that's very hard to do. It's very hard to do. And I don't think that's lowering the standards. I don't think that's anything. That's just learning just experience, right? Rushing a player's development can kind of backfire um, on the student, on the player, on the student athlete. That can really backfire. So I think number one is just not rushing anything, right? I think you always got to build your team first. Okay, is getting guys connected and building good habits as a unit, as a whole, and then kind of hone in on those individual, um, players who have these talent we want to develop, but while maintaining the expectations of our core values. So just being patient, not rushing anything. Um, I think that's one thing I kind of learned, this year. I didn't want to go and rush anything, right? I didn't, at Maine East, my first year there, I didn't want to go and be like, okay, this freshman's really good, let's get him up, right? I wanted to be patient with this freshman. Let this freshman figure some things out and navigate high school, navigate what it means to be a student athlete before getting thrown in a high level varsity game. So being patient, I think, just the one thing, um, and I think if you build a good player relationship, you know they can buy into that. You know, so it's got to be a mutual aspect of player and coach both getting on the same page and not rushing anything, right? Because sometimes the coach be like, "Hey, I don't want to rush this," and sometimes the player is like, "I want to get to that level," right? Or vice versa, right? Sometimes the player's just not ready, and we want them to be ready as coaches. So I just think it's a little bit of both, and just finding that great balance there, um, and taking it day by day and not rushing anything.
That's really important. Uh, the main thing that stood out to me is you can't rush the process. You got to trust it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We just, I think everybody's guilty of this, right? We want instant gratification, you know um and sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't, you know um but like I just think with player development, you have to show them, you have to believe in them, you have to be patient with them. There needs to be a plan. um there needs to be a plan, there needs to be a buy-in from a lot of people, um you know in terms of player development. It's just not the coach, it's just not the player. Parents have to also buy in into player development also, right? We live in such a high competitive society with sports that it's very hard to keep up with some of these players who have a lot more or have more access to resources, right? So player development is just, it really is just a lot of aspects with a lot of buy-in from various stakeholders.
That's as real as you can get with
Yeah.
the opportunities that are presented. You know, just speaking about opportunities. how do you evaluate trust? Just because I know as a former player, I played a little bit in high school, but just relating to all the athletes out there,
Mhm.
there's a big misconception about how, you know, you're even if you're talented, you're just own the right to be out there and play with a certain team or be that main guy on that team. So can
Mhm.
you can you highlight or like explain just the perspective from being a coach of how you have to be represented in that way between the player and the coach?
Yeah, man, I think trust is built. Um, it's not going to be just instantly, right? Um, trust is built, and I think this is where I kind of said earlier. This is where coaches and myself, I value myself on knowing what I'm good at, knowing who I am as a person, as a coach, right? Um, Players can smell you. They will smell if you are real, if you're fake, right? They will know right away uh, if words match my action. So I think trust is built, and trust is built through experience. I do, you know, I do believe in going through the wars with your players. Often talk a lot about that with my players and seniors, right? So I had a group of seniors who I've been with for 2 years, and we'd get ready for a big game, and I'm like, "Hey, man, we've played a lot of basketball together, man. We're ready for this, right? This is the game plan, right? I can tell towards the end of the season, getting ready for a playoff game, like any game plan we came up with, they were gonna do, right? They were gonna do because at that point they knew that this was it right here. And I think it was just through experience and through time and time and time of being together, right? There's gonna be a lot of roller coasters throughout the seasons, um, summer, fall, right? During the season, all season workout. Um, and how a coach manages the team at that time. And I think trust is built during that time. Trust is built during that time. So trust, I think, is just being evaluated through like player buy-in. A player trusts you when they buy into uh, the philosophy, the X's and O's, the little details, right? That's when you know a player trusts you. And that's why I know where there's trust between both of them, right? Between player and coach, right? Is that execution. Um, effort, so I think that's kind of when you really know when a player's buying in, and it's important to build that trust.
Very true. And then speaking of relationship between being a student athlete and also producing on the court, what's your view on that? Because often a lot of people that are athletes that I've seen just growing up would rather just go straightly just into playing that sport instead of focusing on academics. So what's your view
Yeah,
on that and what's your standard, you being a head coach with your team?
yeah, you're definitely you're a student first, right? I mean, that's the cliche right there. You're a student athlete first, right? Student becomes before athlete. Um, I've been framing it to my team, and probably more so this year than my first year. The way I frame it to the team is, how do we expect to win a big game, right? If we can't execute on our turning in our assignments, or getting to class on time, or getting to school on time, right? Or missing the class, or participating in class. Okay, so I try to tie it in with basketball a little bit, right? Like, boys, like, how are we going to be ready to beat this really good team, really big conference matchup this Friday if we can't even do those little things, right? I don't believe in that. I don't believe in that. You can just be 5 minutes to class every day and, not do that little thing. Because if you're doing those little things in the classroom, right, you're going to do them on the basketball court too.
No, yeah, that's essential because you got to have your players buy in as a team, and just talking about roles. How do you how do you evaluate that, and how do you help players understand the process of buying into their role? Because I've seen a lot of teams, none of the players know their roles, and
Mhm.
when you're a coach, you got to have your players understand what they need to do on the court. Otherwise, everyone's just going to play for themselves.
Yeah, so player roles, right? This is, getting kids to buy in their role and what the team needs. I think there's a lot of ways to do this. Every program does are different, and I do think with player roles, I think there are some student athletes that may need the head coach to say, "Hey, this is your role. Um, you are a screener, you are a driver, you are an extra pass giver. That is your role." Some student athletes need that direct instruction, like this is your role. Some student athlete may not respond well to that, you know. So I think it's just kind of evaluating your players, knowing your players, knowing how they will react, knowing what they will buy in. Sometimes, I believe in this a little bit. Telling a player you're a straight line driver and that's it, and you defend, right? Where for some players may need that direct instruction, some players may not. I think sometimes giving that direct instruction is going to limit that player into what they can do. So you try not to hold a player back in the sense of I'm telling him, hey, this is your role, right? Where I think he can do more than that. Let's see what he can do more, right? So and then player roles are sometimes they're just kind of naturally built, right? Through experience. You play a lot of basketball. The month of June, you play 25 to 30 games, and roles are just naturally built amongst the team. Like guys know, all right, 10 seconds left. We need to get the ball to this guy, right? We know that, right? Um, if I drive and this man helps out and he's right, I know I need to give that guy the ball to shoot the ball. So sometimes players' roles are just built naturally without having the head coach telling them, "Hey, this is your job. This is your role." Right? You build it through experience. You build it. I talked about earlier about going through the wars a little bit, right? You build those roles by going through the wars a little bit. So I think every team is different. I think every coach is different. Different coaches have different ways on how to handle players and their roles. Um, I've done stuff where I've done stuff where I've been direct. I've done stuff where I'm not gonna limit this player to saying, "Hey, this is what your role is." I've had conversations, after practice. Hey, this is your role. If you want to play, this is what the team needs for you to do it. So I've done this many ways, Anthony, where maybe it is a conversation on the side. Okay, maybe it's a film session. Maybe it's a stat showing of the players and what they're shooting at, right? Obviously, if a player is shooting this bad from this percentage, you probably don't want that because it's a detriment to the team, right? So so many ways to do that. Um, you know, so many different ways to do that.
Do you often have check-ins like with your players? I mean, obviously every coach wants their team, everyone on their team to feel comfortable, but like, check in with your players where you tell them like, hey, you guys can come into my office, or let's
Yeah.
schedule something where we can talk about some things you can improve on.
Yeah, we have some check-ins, it's hard to check in with everybody, but we do our best, right? You tell assistant coaches, hey, can you check in with this kid here? I'm gonna check in with these four players. Can you check in with these other four players, right? You probably rotate those guys with different coaches at different times of the season. So absolutely we do check-ins, and there's a lot of ways to do check-ins in the office. Uh, when before practice, getting warmed up, right? You try to spend a couple minutes before practice asking them how their day is. What did they do? What did they learn? What's for dinner tonight, right? What's the plan for the weekend, right? So we've done different check-ins for different reasons. Sometimes it's basketball related, and sometimes it's nothing to do with basketball. Um, it's just the fluidity of the season of like where's everybody at. I think at this time this guy hasn't really been shooting the ball well. I think he needs a check in. Um, you know, So there's just a lot that goes in with these check-ins, and I think this is where you involve assistant coaches, and maybe even give players some ownership of being a teammate by telling them, "Hey, he's had 3 bad games. He's playing hard. Can, can you check in with him? He probably doesn't want to hear from the head coach right now. Can you check in with that player?" So check-ins can happen with a lot of different ways.
Yeah, I think that's important just because, you can evaluate talent to see like where players are on the team as well as just, strengthening your relationship and chemistry.
Mhm. Yep.
So focusing more on basketball talk, throughout the years of you coaching and playing, I want to get your perspective. It can be pros, college, but if you want to add in more on high school because you are a current coach right now,
Hmm. Hmm.
what have you seen that you what have you seen throughout the years that like has been different and changed? And what would you like to see um, you know, what would you like to remain the same? So like what have you seen that's changed and what have you seen that you've liked so far?
In terms of just like the evolution of style of play basketball, is that what you're kind of asking, or just?
Yeah, so I mean,
Mm,
I can give an example. One could be how like in high school basketball, especially in Illinois, I'm not sure if it's spread out around every division and league, but there's no shot clock, and that's a game
yeah,
changer.
yeah. We can, yeah. So I think one thing that's kind of changed. I'll start off with like just the evolution of basketball and the style of play now, right? Everything's a lot more three orientated. Everything's a lot more perimeter orientated, right? Everything's more about what we call positionless basketball, right? I think back in the day, it was like you're a point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, and center, right? We really use those terms now, right? We use ball handler, we use wing, we use perimeter, we use post, we use inside out, we use hybrid. Um, you know, um, so I think I like that change. I think players in all levels of basketball are more skilled than they've ever been in the history of the game of basketball. It is really hard stuff to, I think, guard, right? I think, how do you teach to guard somebody who can really make contested shots almost every time, right? So how do you guard that? So I like this new style of play where positionless basketball, allows you to play more smaller, faster, and so forth. And there's still a lot of teams in college and NBA that they will play with two players that are over 6'10". One of them might be a post, and the other one's going to be a perimeter player, right? So I do like that aspect. Um, everything's a lot more faster. The game's faster. I think that's good for players. I think that allows players to play freely a little bit. The things I don't like, the shot clock. We don't have a shot clock. We're slowly integrating the shot clock in the Illinois, but I don't know how I feel about it. I don't. I'm not. I would like to go a season with the shot clock and kind of make my decision after that. And kind of make my decision that. I mean, there's a couple of times where um, I think shot clock would have benefited us this year. I think there were times where it would not benefit us. So I just think, depending on what situation you're in, it could really help you or not help you at all. Um, you know, so yeah, it's just, I guess that's what it really, basketball is changing. It's always changing. There's so many new wrinkles of style of play and dribble drive and you know um, post basketball and so many new just ideas and concepts.
Yeah, I think that's all really important when you talk about pace of the game. Mentioning the shot clock is crucial because when you if you get a certain amount of possessions throughout the game and you're up, after a certain point with the shot clock winding down, and you need the
Hmm.
ball back. It can
Hmm.
be crucial to get the ball
Hmm.
for your team, but also at the same time, it can be an advantage. So, like you
Hmm.
said, there's pros and cons. Um, I just know from evaluating that in the past and being around high school basketball, that's been
Hmm.
something that's been an ongoing issue, how you control that. So
Yeah,
it's it's something that, is still in the works, but it's great to talk about. So if like now that we've talked a lot about basketball, I mean, this can also be related to basketball as well, but just to dive in more into yourself personally, can you tell
mhm.
me about a difficult time you had in your life and how you were able to overcome it?
Oh man, this is real personal. Um, man, I think man, I was probably at the age of 25, 26. Um, you know, I struggled a little bit with some anxiety, man, at that time. When I was 25, 26, and I had like no idea what was it, right? No idea why I was acting very anxious and just, um, having, all these intrusive and, irrational thoughts. It was pretty hard, man. It was really hard. Um, it was actually really hard. But I got through it, man, and um, I got through it, and it was probably the best thing that also happened to me too as well. Kind of woke me up, kind of like lifted a light bulb too a little bit, like, oh, okay, you know. Um, so that was a tough time. That was a tough time. That was kind of overcome it, and probably one of the reasons why I did become a school counselor as well, right? Is just being able to help other young student athletes and some of the stuff they've kind of gone through.
Yeah,
Sometimes and sometimes setbacks and sufferings are stepping stones to something greater,
hmm,
and that's kind of how I view it as. Yeah.
that's real deep. And I think that kind of highlights mental awareness and just
Hmm.
mental health.
Hmm. Yeah, that I think mental health. I think mental health is awareness month is May. I think it's pretty sure it's May.
No,
Yeah.
I was talking about just the aspect of like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, like how like you need to be aware of like whatever issue, I mean not issue or like whatever problem you have and like just how to
Mhm.
go about it the right way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there's stigmas about it, and there's sometimes like we were never taught exactly how to fight a hard time or difficult time in your life.
It's very true. So now that we've dived into a little bit more difficult talks, I want to spread some light now. So, can you give me three memorable experiences you've had being around? Actually, it doesn't have to be three. It can be 3 to 5 or however many you want. But ideally, I'm looking for three memorable experiences around the game of basketball. You as a player, a coach, or just anything in general, like an aha moment.
Oh man, there's so many. Yeah,
Give me your top
there's a
five.
lot. There's a lot in a lot of different ways for basketball. And I hope there's more to come. Um, man, geez, where do I start? I personally like St. Pat's versus Notre Dame.
Oh man.
This is in 2019. We're at St. Pat's, and a player named Austin Freeman, an NCAA kid, just kind of like took over and like hit the two game winning free throws. It was that gym was rocking, man. That gym was really, really rocking. And it was just it couldn't have happened to a better kid for that at that time, man. Like we were just so happy for Austin and for him to kind of just put the team on the back and kind of just take us home there, man. That game was this is a no order, but that's one of them. One of them right there. Um, you know, your brother's game-winning shot against Lake Forest is up there, man. To win a sectional championship. I think it was like 6.1 seconds left, baseline out of bounds. Get it in. Andrew drives to the hole, pulls up for a jump shot, and man, next thing you know, we win a sectional championship, man. You know,
That's a proud brother
um,
moment.
yeah, right. That's a proud brother moment for sure. He was tough. Um, Another basketball moment, man. There's so many. My first career win as a head coach at Maine East. First game of the season versus Naperville Central, 57-51. That was a very proud moment for myself right there to get that win. Um, you know, Man, dude, it's a tough question. It's a tough question right there. Um, I mean, honestly, every day you just try to enjoy every moment you have with the position. That comes with coaching, right? Sometimes, um, I always try to be I always try to remind myself, like, man, um, I'm at a position where I can change lives a little bit, right? So I try to embrace that moment there a little bit, you know, of just using that position that I'm in and everything I've worked for to get to where I'm at.
That's really
Um,
important.
Yeah, so I think that's also the bigger message, right? We certainly want to win. I do want to win. Nobody, everybody wants to win, right? Let's be real. Everybody wants to win, but I think we also have to enjoy those moments um, with your teams and those moments you've had with your teams, the ups and the downs, and really just the amount of time that we've all spent together being part of a team, right? you know, um, your brother's gonna look back at this 5 years from now, like, man, coach, I remember when you used to have to drive to Maris home and then drive me all the way home. How much downtime we had, together and listen to rap, you know, um, getting food and stuff like that. I love those times, right? That in between time of interacting with basketball players. You try to be the coach You try to be the coach who you needed when you were in high school, when you were in seventh grade, when you were in sixth grade, right? That's who you try to be.
That's I think that's great because you're creating bonds, you're creating memories, and I think the biggest thing that I took out of that is how you have influence, but
Hmm.
it's about how you use it in the right way because you're a mentor, you're more than just a
Hmm.
coach,
Hmm.
friend, you're a supporter.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just, man, those moments are so hard, man. Like, I had a good freshman teams at St. Pat's, my first grade, my first time coaching feeder as a seventh grader. We had two buzzer beater shots, right? It's just so many moments, man. It'd be unfair to kind of say this is the one, right? With all the players I've coached and been around.
That's great to hear.
Yeah.
So as we talk more about your coaching life, can you tell me, after all these years of coaching right now, what's the biggest lesson you've learned and you can take away from being around the game?
The biggest lessons I've learned from coaching and being around the game, whew, man, um, there's a couple things I'm gonna throw at you. Um, you know, you spend so much time with these student athletes, and and you know, like your brother, right? I mean, your brother was a man coming in as a freshman, strong, right? Tall, right? Look, he's a man. At the end of the day, sometimes we have to remind ourselves these are high school kids. They don't know any better. That's probably a daily, if not weekly reminder. They are just high school. They do not know any better, right? So we do our best to try to help them in those situations. Uh, And just biggest life lesson, man. Basketball has taught me player relation, like just not player relationship, building relationships with different people who are different than you, with a different upbringing, different person, right? Different skin color. Um, the amount of people I've met in basketball. Basketball is such a small world, right? It's such a small world. Everybody's connected. Everybody's connected in in a odd way. So I think I like that aspect of the game of basketball, just the communication with people, the networking, the people that you've just known, you know, forever through people you met through basketball, right? Um, you don't let basketball use you, you use basketball, you know. Um, so I just think, that's probably the most beautiful thing about basketball, right? It's just meeting new players, coaches, families, and just like being connected. And then in some odd way, they become your family, right? They become your family, and somebody who's, at the forefront of my morals is what family is everything, right? So I just love that about basketball, of how you meet new people, you meet new players, and all of a sudden now they're like family. They're like family. So and it's just like the skills that you learn through basketball, right? Commitment, discipline, communication, um, just those little hidden stuff, that hidden skills that you kind of build. I'm not sure if it wasn't for basketball if I would have those skills, right? I do think learning those skills of what it means to be on a team, not necessarily just basketball, but what it means to be on a team, those skills can take you, depending how you use those skills can take you maybe further than the skills of getting a degree, you know? So I guess that's just, those are my takeaways right there of what the game of basketball has influenced me and shaped me.
I think you hit the nail right on the coffin. Just about the ability to express how the game of basketball has, changed lives and is going to continue to change lives. But, you also have to be smart about how you use it.
Hmm. For sure,
Um,
man. Yeah, yeah.
well, that pretty much wraps up my, my part on just talking to you about the game of
Mm,
basketball and just your coaching career, coach. I have one more thing to say just before
mm,
we finish off. Um, for March Madness, I know this
mm,
is like it's currently going on. You got
mm.
to tune in into men's and women's basketball. Can you tell me who are your favorites from um both sides?
Yeah. In terms of college basketball, I don't have a specific school I've always followed where I'm this die-hard fan. I I kind of look at more from a coaching standpoint. I like how Alabama plays five out basketball offense, right? I like how they run their stuff there, right? And the old Villanova teams with Brunson and Bridges, DiVincenzo, and all those guys with Jay Wright. So I just kind of go through phases right now. If I had to pick somebody to win the NCAA men's tournament right now, I've been saying I've been pretty consistent with going with North Carolina.
Hmm.
They have experienced point guard and they have an experienced big man. I think UConn has some experienced post players too, a little bit. But I really like that. I really like that. I really like their chances this year
Okay, what about
for
you?
the men's side. How about U of I? I don't know, man. They gotta, this is the first. They've been kind of disappointing in years past in the tournament, right? And I'm at the point where like they gotta earn my respect now. They gotta earn my following now. You know, they get this next win, I might be more pro U of I going forward. You know, um, and then the women's side, I have been watching women's basketball better, man. That's some fun basketball to watch.
It is.
They are so skilled, um, and not only so skilled, but they are so competitive. You can see the passion they play with. You can see how hard they want or how bad they want it, right? On the women's side, I've seen a lot of Caitlin Clark. I've seen a lot of Angel Reese. Um, I like UConn, right? Uh, if I'm going to go with somebody, I'm not going to go against South Carolina on the women's side. I'm not there yet, so I'm going to rock with South Carolina on the women's side. Shout out to Dawn Staley.
Yeah, the team is, I think they're in the middle of a dynasty right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of people have them winning again. But overall, just how basketball has impacted all of our lives is, truly just, terrific and great to be a part of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I would say that pretty much wraps up my show. Um,
Uh-huh.
I want to end by saying a big thank you to Coach Serge. I appreciate your time. It's great to see that you're doing well after another season of being a
Uh,
coach at Maine East. And so signing off, this is a double A or Anthony on the Backyard Talks podcast show. For those that are tuning in to listen today, your support goes a long way. Um, Signing off, I am with Coach Sergio Muro, boys varsity high school coach at Maine East. So thank you, and I hope everyone has a great day.